Welcome to the 24th floor. Week 1 is in the books, and now we're turning the page to week 2 and our next ABC 24 game of the week.
Yeah, so 2 unbeaten teams, Fairley and Briarcrest. We're in boxes, which doesn't mean anything to you at home, but the teleprompter's over there. The Bulldogs opened, so I'm going to go here. The Bulldogs opened with a 31-13 win over Millington, while Briarcrest rolled past ECS 44-7.
They spoiled it. We were supposed to keep the boxes up.
And now they got to switch them cameras.
Briarcrest head coach Phil Massey couldn't join us because of a team commitment, but Fairley head coach Frederick Copeland's back here to join us. Another year, coach. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, sir. Glad to be here.
And look at you, another year, another game of the week. I mean, last year, when you was the game of the week, it was against Whitehaven, and Ruben had a lot to say.
It's a dust bowl, brother.
Yeah.
There was no grass on the field.
Yeah. Jumpy Freeman.
Man, it was straight up dust bowl. Everything was dirty. I said, but don't nobody want to get tackled out here.
Right.
I know it hurts.
Right.
Now, Coach, as we talked about, 2 unbeaten teams. You all got a week 1 victory over Millington. Put it on them, 31-13. Tell me, what did you see from your team in that victory?
We grew up. We got a young team. We returned, but coming into the season, we returned 2 starters on offense and 3 on defense. So we really jailed. I feel like we grew up. It was good for us. Now I think we're ready to go ahead and just play football against better competition now. That was my message to the kids this week.
Has the high school transfer portal hit you guys in a good or bad way this year? Because, we talk about so much about all the movements.
Yeah, we had 1 kid leave and transfer out. We've had a few kids come in. Our running back senior, Tyler Wilkins, also our quarterback, Corian Johnson, that's a junior. Yeah.
So you had some benefit from it too, not just some losses. Some teams have taken some serious losses.
Yes, definitely.
Now, we talked about it a little bit off cam. You all went 9-3 last year, undefeated in the district, lost second in the second round, but it's a little bit of connective tissue, which we'll talk about in the show. The team you all lost to, East Nashville, was the team that upset the preseason #1 team in the Mid-South in Collierville. So the reason why it brings it back to you all have an opportunity for an upset yourselves when you take on the preseason #1 private school in Briarcrest. Tell me about that challenge ahead.
I think we're prepared.
Yeah.
Any given night, anybody can be beat. So like I said, we're just gonna do our keys, watch film, practice hard the rest of the week, and just go out and play football. Like you said, we just saw East Nashville take down Collierville, so I think we can be the next to make it happen.
Is it as part of the plan here to tell kids sometimes, because social media and all forget all that stuff you're seeing, we got to line up and play. Is that part of the plan here?
Definitely. Like I always tell my kids, regardless of the A, 5A, 6A, 7A, private school, 3-2, whatever it is, I mean, at the end of the day, we all put our pants and our shirt on the same way, so we just got to go play football and execute. I think we'll be fine, regardless.
For us and for many, this will be the first time we get a chance to look at the Fairley Bulldogs this season. Who are some guys we need to know and that makes this team go?
Right. So definitely we got junior quarterback Corian Johnson. He's our leader. And we also have our running back, Tyler Wilkins. Got receiver out there, sophomore transfer, Clewan Williams from Westwood. Got a sophomore, Andon Watson. He's a key guy for us. We got several more guys around the field, that you guys will be seeing on Friday night, definitely.
Is depth? How's your depth looking this year? Because the bigger the class, the more depth you typically have.
Right. So that's the issue with small school. Typically, kids are almost tick for tack sometimes. It's the depth wise. So we'll probably dress about 50 kids on Friday, compared to a Briarcrest that'll have 85 to 90 kids. So when you're talking about over a 4-year span, over a 4-quarter span, that kind of begins to play into the other team's factor a little bit. So you got to be careful about how you're, helping your kids last down the stretch, because depth does become. And typically at the small school level, you got kids that play both ways. And, the big schools, they're 1-1 because they got so many kids and quality bodies.
Yeah,
it's tough.
Looking at Briarcrest, I was able to get a chance to see them up close in person during their week 1 match. They scored 44 against ECS. Put it in the prompter. First team offense found the end zone on 6 of 7 possessions. When you put that on film, what jumped out to you?
They do everything well. Their quarterback does a really good job. displaying the ball around. Their running back number 3 runs hard, receivers run routes.
Octavius Flynn.
Yep, he does a good job.
Doc Ock.
Yeah, Doc Ock, yeah. And the offensive line does a good job. I mean, Coach Massey does a really good job of what he's got going on. So like I said, I think we're up for the challenge. I mean, we're going to go in there and we're going to have our best. We're going to pack up our little town, our little school. We're going to come invade Briarcrest Stadium.
There's got to be a little bit of, that's one thing I do love about football is the underdog, that I don't know if you can even consider yourself an underdog, but big school, little school challenge. Hey, we're going to we'll show up and show out, and I know you don't think we have enough bodies or whatever, but is that a part of the Fairley Bulldog mentality?
Definitely. I mean, so we typically, I think we have the toughest 3-week stretch here. I mean, Middleton's a 4A school.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, then you take Briarcrest, then you come to Whitehaven, per se, not to jump ahead. But I mean,
for the rivalry
for the rivalry game, the Train Track Classic. But there's not too many small schools who play this tough of a schedule. You got, once you win a little bit, you don't get a chance to play some of those smaller schools. So you got to play some bigger schools because, you're past track.
Well, it's not just for the record. You get good experience, right?
Yes, sir.
You get the game time that those guys are going to need for down the stretch, but then you also have to manage bodies and injuries and all those things. So there's some good and bad in there, too.
Right. So, and also, I guess what it does for us is it'll make us battle tested when it comes to playoffs. Mm-hmm. So Richard talked about East Nashville.
Yep.
So East Nashville, what they do is, even though they go play Carville, they get battle tested. So they'll come to Memphis, come play Carville, then go play Antioch, which is another 6A school. Mm-hmm. So what I'm hoping this gives us is, hey, we'll go and play Briarcrest, and we'll hop the next week and play another 6A powerhouse. So by the time we get into region play and also get into the playoffs, we're battle tested. We've seen the best around. So it'll help your kids, going forward down the stretch.
Yeah.
You don't have to give us too much inside baseball, but looking at a team like Briarcrest with their quarterback, who Ruben and I have been high on, in Caden Dixon, I think he threw 216 yards.
Somewhere in that range.
Somewhere in that range. It's kind of the key to beating that team is trying to keep their offense on the sideline as long as possible. Because I know what you guys in Class 2A, especially from what we seen last year, you all score quick. I remember, before we were rolling, I talked about your quarterback last year, Andrew Johnson. He can throw that thing, and next thing you know, y'all back on defense. But with a team like Briarcrest, you may not necessarily want their offense on the field that long.
Right. No, definitely. So, I mean, we want to just pick up first downs. As they say, we'll pick up first downs to keep chains moving. That's honest to God. We just want to be fundamentally sound. As much time as it takes us, or less as it takes us, that's what we'll be. But we definitely just want to be able to keep chains moving, play solid defense, and just go from there.
You probably needed this game at Freeman Stadium, so you could do that cloud of dust action, brother. You could kick up some dust, get them private school kids down on the dirt.
No doubt. Maybe next time if we renew, we can get them to the legendary John P. Freeman Stadium.
Yeah, get
home
them
and
down
home.
in the dirt.
Yeah,
we love it.
Yeah, definitely.
So as you're out taking a look at your season, because every coach does it. I know you want to go 1-0 every week. That's a coach thing. We get
sir.
that. But when you first got your schedule, you looked at your schedule, what was your initial thought? All right, we got a chance, or what did we do?
This was a late addition. So last year, we played Melrose, and we had a cancellation. So Briarcrest had a cancellation as well. So that's how we were able to bring this thing together. So, we didn't shy away from the competition. So we, their AD reached out to me, and we set a deal because I'm my school's AD as well. And we just, put things to the paper, and hey, now we're here on August 28th.
And so then you get your preseason, your non-region games, but then you start to look at your region games.
Right.
And I know you don't want to look too far ahead, because no coach wants to do that. But you're looking at your region games and saying, this should get us ready for that?
No doubt. This should get us down a stretch. So, I mean, there's not a lot of teams in 2A that have the talent and the bodies that Briarcrest has.
Yeah.
So, I mean, not overlooking any of our opponents, but I think this game will prepare us down the stretch. I think we'll be fine.
Is there a little bit of a pride because it's public school versus private school? I always know when I was growing up, we used to have a little bit extra smoke for them private school teams because they thought they were better than us. And we wanted to make it be like, you may pay more money to go to this school and have nicer facilities, but we finna show you you're not better than us. I gotta assume that it's like that kind of in your locker room.
Not really. For us, I mean, any chance we get to play football and there's a different name on across that jersey, we're gonna get up to play regardless who it is. So, that kind of doesn't mean, like I said,
I know they see social media, and I'm not trying to throw my guy Caden under the bus, but they see him doing all this this on social media and this, that. And then I know them guys like, okay, but we finna put him on the ground on Friday night.
Definitely, that's your thought process. They're ready. They're ready for the challenge.
I do think it's changed a lot, to Richard's point about private versus public, because there's so much more movement than there used to be. The rules are a lot looser than they used to be, and a lot of these kids end up playing together in youth leagues a lot of their life, and then just go separate for high school.
Right.
So while there might be in some places, some of that private versus public, I would like to think that a lot of these guys at this point just know each other as players and are up for the challenge.
Definitely. You got a lot of these kids that play youth football, middle school together. I mean, at some point in time for high school, they decide we're going public, we're going private, depending on the situation or whatnot. So, yeah, they definitely all, know each other.
What about your fans? Let's talk a little bit about the fans. We've got to get them out to Eads.
Right.
Are they ready? Are you packing up the town? What are we doing?
That's definitely a plan. We want to get our cheerleaders, our band, our parents, our community members, alum, famous noise, have them bring their noisemakers out. We want to, shake the place. Yeah, definitely. We want to bring that White Haven to Eads.
That's what I'm talking about. So it's week 2. Nobody's winning the championship Friday night. It's a millennial. But what do you need to see from the guys that makes you feel better? Because you guys, I feel like y'all have been knocking on the door of really bringing home that gold ball in Class 2A. You're right there. Like, I had you guys in NBA, and I know we talked about Mace now with their Welcome Back tour in year 2. So what do you need to see that makes you feel that this could be the year that you could go deeper than that second round?
Just compete in every phase of the game. I mean, offensively, we want to be fundamental. Defense want to be fundamental. We want to be we actually want to dominate all 3 phases. So that's where we are. I mean, against the best competition, people always say, competition sharpens iron. So that's what we want to do.
Iron sharpens iron.
Yeah, definitely.
And this season, people don't understand how long a football season truly is because they don't understand the preseason work.
Yes.
If you're not involved in the preseason, the summer workouts, then the fall camp, then the actual practices start, right? So it's a lot longer than people think. So I would like to think one of the things you guys have to avoid has got to be injuries.
Yes, definitely. So we've got a few kids out now injury-wise. So my main goal for this game is to make sure we come out injury-free, because we're so early in the season, so we definitely want to stay injury-free. We already got some guys banged up, but we want to be able to keep this train rolling.
Gotcha.
Week 2 game of the week. Ruben, tell them how we're going to watch it. Don't do it on Friday night.
All right, on Friday, I'll be live out at Briarcrest for our game of the week. It's 2 undefeated teams going head-to-head. Of course, it's week 2, but you still got to rock that undefeated banner while you got it.
You want to know until you're not.
Yeah, that's right. I'll have live previews during your ABC 24 News at 5 and 6. Then I'll also be there for our 6:30 weather show as well. So we'll have live weather and live sports there. We'll have Fairley and Briarcrest covered from kickoff through the final whistle, highlights and reaction. That is, of course, our game of the week here on ABC 24. It should be a great one.
Coach, we always appreciate you coming on.
Hey, I appreciate you
Appreciate
guys.
you, big dog.
All right.
Best of luck to the Bulldogs Friday night.
Hey, I thank you guys for having us.
All right, before we get too far into week 2, we've got to talk about what happened in week 1. Because
So much to talk about.
There were some surprises, Ruben.
Yeah, there's some prizes, a lot to talk about, and some teams not too happy on Sunday morning. Let's say Sunday morning.
John Vargas will join us next to break down Collierville's upset, Lausanne's first game without Thomas Hefner. What else caught our attention across the Mid-South? That's all next on the 24th floor. Welcome back to the 24th floor. 1 week of high school football, and we've already got some explaining to do.
Yeah, you see, the team that opened up the year #1 in the Daily Memphis is Dandy Dozen. Sorry, I got to go over here. It's already 0-1. Collierville turned it over 5 times, scored just 7 points, and a loss to East Nashville. Not a good game.
A 19-7 loss. I was at that game. Meanwhile, Southwind won its 17th straight regular season game. But Lausanne gave the Jaguars all they could handle in his first game without Thomas Hefner. Those weren't the only things that got our attention. Joining us now is a friend of the program, called by some around the Mid-South, the Adam Schefter of the Mid-South prep world. He is the Daily Memphis. John Vargas is back with us. John, always a pleasure to have you.
Are you good at being compared to Adam?
I would be good with his bank account.
I was going to say. That guy's got some money.
Well, I assume more than me, I would hope, after all this time.
So, John, I tell you all the time how much I read your work, how much I learn so much about the Mid-South prep world through you, the conversations we have in person, the things I read, your articles. When I was trying to refresh and get into that mode, I read a lot of your stuff. And you said before the season that Collierville was probably the team to beat around here in 6A. After 5 turnovers in that 19-7 loss in week 1, I remember I was telling you on the sideline, what's going on with this team? What happened?
Well, I mean, it happens. You know that teams come out flat, Richard, and you know, I don't want to speculate on what was going on because I don't know. You know, I'm not there in the locker room or the practices or anything like that. But I mean, they just came out flat, and I think, you know, there's still 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids at the end of the day, and maybe they weren't focused for whatever reason. And East Nashville's a good team too.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I'm not taking anything away from them. You know, you look at a 2A school versus 6A school. Well, you say the 6A school should win, and it probably should. But East Nashville's quality, and you know, they came out on that first drive and marched it right down the field and kind of hit Collierville in the mouth, and they never really recovered from it. But you know, I still got a lot of faith in Collierville. Nobody won a state championship on Friday, and nobody lost it. So everything is still right there in front of them.
That Covington kid, I was telling Ruben.
That just looks like bad tackling.
No, well, they definitely didn't tackle well. Dallas Covington's a terrific player, and I think Western Kentucky's kind of getting a bit of a steal with him, you know, coming in to play quarterback for them. He's really darn good, and you know, the defensive back they had, Richard, number 0. He
picked off Braden a lot.
He did, and he held Tay Walden to just 1 catch. And
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, I mean, he had a great. You know, they had some really talented kids, and you know, they weren't. You know, they weren't intimidated by the moment or the crowd or the occasion, and they just came in here and played good football.
Some of this has got to be on. I mean, first of all, give East Nashville some serious credit for showing up ready to play. But it just, when I'm watching these highlights, I don't see a fired up Collierville team defensively. I'm not seeing, I mean, you're trailing, there's a wide open spot in the middle of the zone.
That was really his only passing play he really did.
It doesn't look like they're playing the way that I watched them play last year. And they've got a ton of talent. Collierville has a ton of talent and size and speed and skill.
They do, and if I know those coaches over there, Ruben, I think they're going to figure it out this week. Now, it's a big challenge, you know, going down to Oxford and playing a really good Oxford team, and but still, I do think they're going to figure it out. And like I said, I've still got a lot of faith in this team. Like, too much talent, like you say, you know, a quarterback going to Iowa, Braden Santibanez, an Oregon receiver, you know, Tay Walden, a UT Martin running back, Larry Johnson, you know, huge O-line, huge D-line, you know, just talent all over the field. And, you know, I still got faith in them. They'll figure it out.
Let's get it. So I was telling Ruben this. I was surprised that Tay didn't get more targets. It seemed like they really wanted to give Larry the ball and were working the run game. Yeah. And when they started targeting Tay, it was almost too late because East Nashville saw it coming and was able to send like doubles at him.
I mean, it was just a really weird game too, Richard. You know, from starting late with the weather. Yeah. And you know, we hope everybody's still recovering from that. But starting late from the weather, and then you know, it seems like East Nashville kept trying to hand Collierville the game, and Collierville wouldn't take it. You know? I mean, you know, especially there in the second half. I think Collierville, you know, tightened things up defensively in the second half. I think they tackled a lot better in the second half, and East Nashville really didn't move the ball as well in the second half. So the game was there for them, but they for whatever reason they just couldn't take advantage of it. And I just go back to the fact that it's kids. I mean, you know, I write about these kids, but I can write about anybody. These coaches are making their livelihoods off these 15 and 16 and 17-year-old kids, and you know, it's the kind of stuff that maybe makes you pull your hair out sometimes. Nights like Saturday.
Yeah, I think sometimes people don't understand the flow that goes into a football game too, especially from a play calling standpoint. You know, they may have went in with an idea of how they wanted the script to be, and then East Nashville may have flipped that on them and not allowed them to run that script. And then you're kind of playing catch up and trying to figure out what is going to work and how it's going to work. And so that's why defensively, if you can at least lock in, you can stay in the game, which is what they really did. They stayed within reach of the game. Yeah. Just could never quite get going offensively.
Yeah, and East, you know, from what folks have told me, East Nashville is, you know, they're used to playing teams like Collierville in their area. Yeah. It's hard for them to schedule, so they play the Antiochs of the world and some of these other, you know, bigger and really good. Yeah, it's not new to them at all. And you know, I like their team, and I think they're going to be a problem in 2A for sure. I mean, we got some 2A teams in our area that have some state title aspirations.
Like Fairley,
like
we just
Fairley
got done with.
Fairley, Mace. We got some good 2A teams in our area, but East Nashville is going to be a tough out for anybody.
Yeah. Now let's switch gears to two other teams who have title aspirations, Southwind and Lausanne.
Yeah.
You was at that game. Now we thought about going to it for week 1. We wanted to switch things up.
Yeah.
Southwind won 36-28. It was a shootout. I don't think anybody expected that after the news with Thomas Hefner. Southwind extended that regular season winning streak to 17. What did you see from the Jaguars that reinforced why you were so high on them coming into the year?
Well, it's just gonna be different this year, Richard. And obviously with Kelvin Perkins, it's got to be different. You lose the best the player in the history of the school, without question. It's going to look a lot different. I think talking to Coach Griffin in the preseason, last year with Kelvin, they were more 60-40. Passing. This year it might be more 64 running with Kamani Williams at running it. And he had an 88-yard touchdown run on the first series of the game, kind of got them going on the right foot. And obviously that great offensive line they have too.
Yeah, you call them the U-Haul boys.
Well, they call themselves the U-Haul boys. That's what they call themselves. But Antonio Kiefer and Zacchaeus Ratliff and Big Chris Campbell and those guys. I mean, that's 3 college guys right there that I just named. They've already committed. So you got a big O-line like that. You got a running back like Kamani Williams. I would ride that horse as much as I could. But and Lausanne, it was 36-14. Lausanne came back and made it a 1-possession game there at the end. And, full credit to those guys for having to adjust on the fly when.
Can we just touch base on the craziness that is? That in case you don't know, Thomas Hefner ruled ineligible just days, really, before the season kicks off. So then your star wide receiver, Lawrence Britt, has to step in and be quarterback at that point.
And they kind of actually knew.
They prepared for that a little bit.
Well, they knew that the thing with Thomas was pending, before it became public. So they had a little more preparation time, than maybe we think they did. And they were just waiting on that appeal to see if it would go through. But they knew it was a possibility that they wouldn't have Thomas. So they were able to prepare about a week or so, but still.
That's still not a
team
ton
like
of time,
Southwind.
I mean, you're taking Lawrence Britt away from being a wideout, which is what he's going to college to play.
You are, and he's their best option at quarterback though, because the backup the quote unquote real quarterback is young and inexperienced. So Lawrence certainly gives them the best option to win, and I think they will still be very good going forward because he can do things with his legs and. From that position that, maybe he'll throw some different wrinkles in there and that kind of thing. But you're right, it takes away a great weapon in the passing game, and those guys will figure it out. But the way they were able to adjust on the fly and score 28 points against, and it was a 1-possession game.
Yeah,
they recovered an
I was
onside.
following your tweets. It came all the way down to the end.
No, they
had a chance.
8 points behind. And, a funny story, too, Lawrence, he took a bit of a beating in that game, just lots of hard hits and, just fair, good football. But he took some hits and typically he would be on the hands team. So they go out for that onside kick trailing by 8 points, and the coaches are like, no, we'll put somebody else in there, Lawrence. You're our quarterback. We can't have you out there on the hands team and you've been beat up all game. And Lawrence basically said, the heck with that, guys. I'm out there. And he recovered the onside kick. Yeah.
Wow.
Really good onside kick by Hank Smith.
He's just a football player.
He's just a football player. That's the moral of the story.
Yeah, we call him the quarterback whisperer. So there's a dude in town who trains some guys. We call him the quarterback whisperer. But his phrase is, you just got to go be the guy. Go be a guy.
Yeah.
And that's what that sounds like.
And Lawrence is a guy. Antonio Huntsman Jr. is a guy, linebacker, running back. Keon Cooper is a guy, the K-Train. I mean, he's a guy.
I like that K-Train.
Yeah, K-Train. All aboard the K-Train.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to use that.
Yeah, but no, they've got guys over there that, speaking of big offensive lines, they've got some terrific size at Lausanne as well. They're just young. I mean, 4 of those guys were starting for the first time, and 3 of them are sophomores, and so that's always going to be hard. Yeah. But they'll be fine. They really will.
So you was at Southwind Lausanne. We had a couple of games ourselves, but neither that we was at was particularly close. Let's start with our game of the week. Houston beating Germantown 40-6. After going 3-8 last year, how much did Houston impress you in that game against Germantown?
Well, I kind of had a feeling Houston was going to be much improved this year. I mean, just because last year with They played so many sophomores and even some freshmen in some key spots. And the coaches will probably tell you this, Richard, with the schedule they had last year, it just wasn't conducive to success with a young and inexperienced team. So, they took their lumps in a lot of cases, but these guys coming back a year older, a year wiser, a year better, right? Darius Robertson there.
Double R.
He's gonna have a big season.
He went for 126, 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, and Cannon Day at quarterback. Yeah. I mean, he's really, really good. The O-line that they have, they've got a terrific O-line. That's going to be a theme this year. Yeah. We got some really good O-lines in town, and Houston is right up there with the best of them. But and they've got a great defensive coordinator too. Coach Kleeman over there does a terrific job, and to hold Germantown to just 83 total yards, that speaks volumes.
Yeah. We see Rodarius scoring a touchdown right here. Has he put himself into the conversation as one of the best players in the area?
Well, he is, and in the preseason, talking with Coach Thomas and the guys out there, they've had some great running backs out there at Houston. You guys will remember Lincoln Perry, who actually won Mr. Football several years ago. Yep. Damon Sissa, who was MVP of the Blue Cross Bowl when they won state a couple of years ago. They think Rodarius has a chance to be as good as Oliver. Like you were saying, Ruben, he just walks out there and you can tell he's a dude.
Yeah, he's
right?
a dude, man. He's a football dude.
It's just all over.
And it helps when you got them big old linemen.
It does.
Creating a space for you. And Houston, I was out there, and Houston definitely looked much improved from last year. Almost entirely from youth, and that Coach Thomas said the same thing. Yeah. Hey, when he was here last week with us, he said, hey, we were young. Yeah. We took some lumps while we were young. Right. We'll be better. He was right. They are better. But Germantown just didn't look like Germantown. Yeah. Let's just be honest, that's the flip side of that. Germantown has lost some bodies after a coaching change and some movement.
They have. And I really hope the fans over there are patient with Coach Sutton, because I think, Deron Sutton's one of our finest coaches. He's been doing this a long time, and he wouldn't have been doing it for as long as he has if he hasn't been, successful and good.
Battle tested.
And battle tested, yeah. So, in time, I think Germantown's going to be really good, and probably even by the end of the season, I think we're going to see a lot better team on the field than what we saw Friday night. But I just hope they're patient with him, because he did lose some guys, but there's still some really good pieces over there. The Simmons brothers and some guys on that defense. They've got some good size up front. They got a defensive end going to committed to SEMO or Missouri. I always get those two mixed up, but anyway, he's a college guy.
Is he going to be a Bear, or is he going to be because Bear would be Missouri State?
Yeah, and can't forget Peyton Ballard. He's one of the best linebackers, and he's an all-state type of linebacker guy who's been there, his whole career. So yeah, there's lots of talent at Germantown. I just hope they're patient with him and give him a chance to coach those guys up.
Now, I know they're trying to wrap us into there, but I kind of want to keep this going. Let's get on another game that we was at, and that's Central shutting out Melrose 42-0. That was the game I was at. That was a game that originally was going to be our game of the week, and we ended up pivoting. I'm not going to tell y'all why. That's a little inside baseball. But I read your article. This was the first time Melrose has been shut out in 25 games.
Yeah.
And as I was telling Ruben, Melrose seems to have never been able to beat Central. So I always said there's levels to it, but answer this for me, John. Is Central that good, or was Melrose that concerning, or was it a little bit of both?
No, Central is really darn good. Again, with Melrose, the coaching changed. They lost some guys they might have had, through transfers. But Central is really darn good. Coach Wright, Major Wright's got his son is quarterback.
Brooks. I figured that was his son.
One of the best quarterbacks in our area, no doubt. But they're just so senior laden, and like you said, Richard, battle tested. Landon James and Josh Lane on the defensive line, who's committed to Memphis. They got 3 or 4 running backs that can make plays, 3 or 4 receivers.
Yeah, they were just running the ball down.
And
they even did the little Spider-Man celebration because they were just running the ball down Melrose's throat.
I really, really think with looking at their schedule and kind of projecting forward, with Germantown being kind of rebuilding like we just talked about, with MUS being a little bit down. I really think Central has a chance to be 9-0 going into that week that last regular season game against Munford, which will probably
a huge one,
most likely decide the region title. I think Munford's got a chance to be 9-0. I think.
Do they still got Tay over at Munford?
Tay Starks?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
No,
that was the guy.
Munford's got like 10 running backs.
All they do is they remind me of Georgia Tech.
Well, it's a single wing. Yeah.
They remind me a lot of Georgia Tech's old offense.
So they keep running backs at Munford, but those two teams are on a collision course, and I think they're both really, really good. But no, Central's legit, I think.
Yeah. Well, I know we're way over time in this segment.
We gotta go. We gotta talk about some of our games.
Yeah, we'll do our games real quick.
Real quick, before we let you go, John, let's take a look at some of the other games we'll be watching in week 2. Houston-Whitehaven jumps off the page. Mustangs, like we said, coming off that win over Germantown, while Whitehaven looking to bounce back after losing its opener to Innsworth. We didn't really talk too much about that. Ruben, keep it going, though.
All right, Germantown tried to bounce back too. The Red Devils head to Bartlett, which is coming off a nice road win over MUS. Bartlett impressed some people, including yourself, I think, last week.
Entered the Dandy Dozen this week.
Yeah. Memphis East travels to Arlington. White Station gets a big early test at Christian Brothers, and that is a big test. Good luck with Nate Brick.
Yes.
That dude is legit. The Spartans are coming off a 40-0 win over Bolton.
And speaking of Bolton, they'll get Central, who we just talked about. And like John said, the Warriors couldn't have looked much better against Melrose with that 42-0 shutout. North Point Christian heads to MUS. Both teams looking for their first win of the season. Any of these games stick out to you, John? Tell the people where you're going to be at.
Well, it's interesting. You mentioned Nate Brick, and he had such a great first game.
Yeah, I was there for that one.
Yeah, I mean, he's just so good. But, one thing White Station's got going for them, they got maybe the 2 best defensive ends in the city with Antoine Jackson, who's committed to Ole Miss, and a kid named Jalen Daniels.
They need to make sure they have some DBs.
Make
sure you got some DBs.
They do. They definitely need DBs, but my theory is maybe put some pressure on the quarterback with those great defensive ends.
And Nate's really, really good.
No, he's really good, but so I'm looking for. I think I might just go out to Christian Brothers and maybe see Nate myself because that first game was.
That kid's got. I call him NBZ.
Almost 300 yards and 4 touchdowns in one half.
Yeah.
I don't care who the opposition is. You're doing something.
You're doing something right.
John, we always appreciate the insight, and I'm sure week 2 will give us plenty to talk about. As you know, you have a welcome invitation. Come on anytime.
Well, you guys just call me. I'm sorry.
Should be a weekly thing, brother. We have to go through them every week.
Sorry we couldn't make it work last week, but
fine.
Hit me up.
It's even better. We got more to talk. We had something to really talk about.
Well, just let me know anytime you guys need.
We got you.
I'd be glad to do it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, high school football has had its turn. Now it's time for the Tigers.
Charles Huff Fair. I was seeing if that's where you were ending. The Charles Huff Fair officially kicks off Saturday when Memphis takes on UNLV. We have been waiting after an entire season of off-season of questions, position battles, which we still know no answers to. What's it going to look like?
Well, it's finally time to see it for real. John's co-worker, Frank Bonner, joins us to preview Memphis and UNLV. We'll react to the latest from Charles Huff. That's next on the 24th floor. All right, we've talked a lot about what this new era of Memphis football could look like, but Saturday, we finally get to see it.
Yeah, it's been like real hush-hush over there. Charles Huff makes his Memphis debut on the road against UNLV, and after an offseason with 71 new players, that's a lot of new players, new coaches, a lot of questions. Hopefully, we start getting some answers.
Yes, and we brought in our guy to help us sort through it all. He's the Daily Memphian Tigers beat writer, Mr. Frank Bonner, the second FB2 joins us. Frank, good to have you back on the 24th floor.
How y'all doing? Always good to talk to y'all.
And Frank, I want to start with something Huff said that I think really gets to the heart of this first game. He says he already knows this team is physical. He already knows it's tough. What he doesn't know yet is how it responds when something goes wrong, excuse me. Take a listen to this first side.
So I'm more concerned. I'm not as concerned with how tough we'll be or how physical we'll be. I'm concerned with how are we going to respond. The game's not going to go perfect. We're not going to go out there and they end up with 0 yards and 0 points and never move the ball. They've got really good players. They've got really good coaches. They're going to challenge us. And how do we respond to that challenge collectively?
So, Frank, what jumps out to me is with 71 new players, Huff can simulate a lot in practice, but he can't simulate being down 7 on the road, a turnover, or a bad call, or UNLV landing that first punt. So how much do you think Saturday is about Huff learning what he actually has?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what he was speaking to is that you can know what you have in the individuals, you can know how they respond to your coaching, but you can't simulate a game in the way of, like I think one of the comments he said that I don't know how they're going to respond if UNLV runs the opening kickoff back. Like, what's their disposition going to be? And the only way to truly know that is to see them when it happens. And so I think every coach across the country is probably waiting to see what happens when their team gets scored on, or how the offense is going to react when they have their first turnover and things like that. And so I think that's probably what Huff and their entire coaching staff is probably going to be paying attention to, because then you'll know how to coach them in game when you see how they respond when mistakes are made.
So, but while there's 71 new players and new coaching staff and all that, this is not something it's alone for Memphis. This is something that's happening across the world in college football because there's so much change and turnover with the transfer portal. Every coach, I think, is trying to figure out how their teams are going to respond anymore because you're not developing the same way you
Dealing
were.
with a bunch of mercenaries.
Yeah, 10 years ago.
Yeah, I mean that's the catch-22 that college football coaches are in nowadays. Now, obviously, Huff brought in some players from Southern Miss, so he knows how guys like Mike Montgomery, Ian Foster, Jermon Tapp, like he knows how they're going to respond in game situations because he's coached them in game before. But a lot of these other players, he hasn't. This is going to be the first game that he has his hands on them in a coach from a coaching standpoint, and so he's still. There's certain things that you can only learn about the player and the team after the first opening kickoff is made. And so yeah, there's still some. We sit here talk about the unknowns that we have between a depth chart and things like that. There's still a few unknowns that the coaching staff is going to be working at.
Frank, I feel like you done queued this up perfectly for us. We're talking about the unknown. One of the main unknowns is quarterback.
Yep.
Everybody wants to know who's playing quarterback, and Huff knows. He just doesn't think we need to know yet. Take a listen to what he said.
I know a lot. I know a lot. I know a lot. I know who's going to be starting quarterback. I know who's going to be starting running back. I know who's going to be starting center. I know who you can bark at. I know who needs to be, kind of pulled to the side and talk to. I know who's got problems at home that show up in the building, even though they may not say that.
I know who's got problems at home. It's crazy. But, Frank, you've been trying to get this man to give you a depth chart for probably longer than anybody. What do you actually know? What insight do you probably kind of have a feel? It feels like we kind of know who the starting quarterback is, but he's just not going to come out and say it.
I mean, look, everybody has their educated guesses, right? And some people's guesses are a little more educated than others in terms of what you expect the depth chart to be. But nobody really knows, because one thing about Huff and the way that he's kind of running this program is if he wants to keep something close to the vest, he's going to keep it close to the vest. And so I can tell you who I think is going to be in this position and that position. But at the end of the day, it isn't because somebody told me this. It's just because my own guesstimation is leading me to one way or the other. But Huff has kept that decision specifically with the quarterback pretty close knit.
So I saw something the other day. He did an interview where he was explaining why he was doing this. And it makes so much sense in this generation of transfer portal football, because if you release a depth chart early and the guy who came in thought he was going to be the man, and then he finds out he's second or third on the depth chart.
Now he doesn't want to play hard.
Yeah, well, now he's going to the portal. He's trying to figure out if he can get in the transfer portal.
Sorry, what you mean? I thought I was the starter.
I thought I was coming here to be a starter. I'm not going to be a starter. I'm going to try to get in the portal and get out of here as soon as I can. And so it kind of became this conversation that he was saying of you're having to try to almost protect them from themselves at times by letting them see how the gameplay is going to develop more than just the depth chart. And so I'm curious how much of that he's having to deal with as well.
Yeah, one thing he said in those lines is that he doesn't want somebody to start preparing like they're not a starter. He said if you tell a guy too early that he's going to be a backup or whatever, where he's going to start preparing himself like a backup. And he wants everybody to prepare themselves like a starter because, in college football, attrition happens. One day they may be a starter later on down the season. depending on what happens with injuries and so on. And so he wants everybody to have a standpoint of feeling like they're ready if their number's called.
So something else that I took out of that is he says Power 4 programs are actively scouting this roster, trying to basically pluck them. Ruben talks about it all the time. When you're not in the Power 4 and you're at a level like Memphis where you're like on the outside end, those guys, to Ruben's point, they see they're not starting, they're about to go ahead and hit the portal. And now you got those Power 4 programs, as we talked about with Lane Kiffin, who's going to come pluck them. And I think that's another reason why he doesn't want to publicly advertise every player he thinks is probably going to break out, because he knows that there's vultures around the program.
It's just a part of the game right now. I don't know that I see, P4 taking a kid who's third string from Memphis, right? But I do think that you could take a kid who's going to be third string from Memphis and he could see if he could go start, or get
necessarily second string.
Or second string, or see if he could get a spot in North Texas or somewhere else where maybe he's going to get more run or more playing time. It's a dirty game right now, but that doesn't have a whole lot of rules. And so, unfortunately, that's what every coach has to deal with. But I'm okay with Coach Huff. Frank, to your point, I'm okay with Coach Huff not necessarily showing all his cards because he's still figuring out how his team's going to be.
Yeah, right. And like you said, that's the nature of college football. The thing about the Power 4 thing, and Huff, to his credit, did say this. He said, look, the whole P4 scouting your roster, that's going to happen anyway, regardless of what you try to do. But he said, I'm not going to do your homework for you. I'm not going to make things easier for you to scout my team. And the other thing about this is the whole releasing of the depth chart only matters for the opening kickoff. Like once they play UNLV, the depth chart's out there. We saw who played. And so this is a mute conversation the moment that we see the starters step on the field, and kind of all that close to the vest stuff kind of goes out the window a little bit.
So it's funny because we're doing all this for UNLV, and you would think that UNLV is like one of those Power 4 teams. But something that caught my attention when I was listening and reading his presser is he talked about how much ahead UNLV is of Memphis. It's not like he was necessarily implying that they were better than him, but he was basically saying that they're more prepared, and he's been hitting the guys a lot. In fact, take a listen to exactly what he kind of talked about it.
I mean, we went and did pregame warm-up Saturday. It looked like herding cats. But they've never done it, right? So, even how do you warm up before the game, right? That sounds like something so remedial. UNLV already knows how they warm up before the game.
You don't really hear coaches say that, talk about how a team is more prepared than them and ready to do it.
I think he's just talking, and Frank,
but herding cats was funny, though.
I think he's just talking about when it comes to a program standpoint of how much stuff has been put in place, what kind of standards, what kind of routines, because football is the game of routines. And so what I kind of took from that, Frank, was that he was basically saying, hey, we're still in the beginning stages of putting this program in place.
Yeah, right. And so he's just saying that, to your point, there's a way certain things operate where, pregame, this is what we do on pregame. This is what we do when we come out the tunnel and all this other things. And so when you have so many new guys who have never had a pregame situation with this particular coaching staff, some of those things still need to be fleshed out in terms of this is how we operate in these pregame moments. And that's just, that's what everybody, right? It's like when you get hired at a job and you're on day one or week one or whatever, there's certain things that you have to fill out about how that employer just goes about their day-to-day business. And that's kind of what Huff is kind of getting at.
But how much do you think that will actually matter in between the lines on if winning or losing? Sure, they do all these things that Huff is still trying to establish. Still, at the end of the day, it's about the talent. The best talent is going to win. So do you think while it's noble for him to mention that, does that really even matter when it comes down to it?
Well, I think it's about just staying on your square, right? Like if you can't do things right in the pregame, well, how do I expect you to do things right when the ball is snapped, right? It's just, I think that's kind of just the mindset of always knowing your assignment. And if you're just in that mindset of knowing your assignment and knowing where you're supposed to be here and there, then you're more likely to be in that zone once you're on the field trying to make a play. I think that's kind of more so what that's about.
How critical is it and I just read this question you put in there. I thought it was a good question. But how critical is it for Memphis fans to give some patience and pause, at least in the very first beginning of these games, because it's so new? And, you know, it's not going to be what Coach Silverfield and company were doing. It's going to be a different style of football, different era of football. And it might be ugly in the beginning.
Well, I think there's a balance to that, right? And so you can't come out and expect Charles Huff to go undefeated and make the college football playoff with a 13-0 record in year one right off the bat with all these new players and this new coaching staff, right? And so, yeah, there's some grace there, but also the position that the football program is in, there is a level, there's a high floor that is expected to be met, even if they don't win the conference championship or anything like that. Like, obviously, that's the ceiling. And if he doesn't meet the ceiling, then you can't ridicule a guy for not reaching the ceiling in year one. But there is a certain baseline of a floor that fans probably still expect him to reach just because of where the state of the program is.
So much is made in this game about Charles Huff because it's his first game as head coach, and through all the offseason, he's been the guy. But something that we haven't talked about in this matchup against UNLV, people talk more about the overall matchup. The guy on the other sideline, UNLV's got a good coach too. Yep. Dan Mullen is a former SEC guy.
Yep.
And Huff has seen him a million times in college football, you know, through their times crossing paths in the SEC. So, in fact, what did Huff have to say about the matchup with Dan Mullen? Let's take a listen.
Everywhere he's been successful, regardless of what the picture may be portrayed to be. He's recruited at a high level. When we got to Mississippi State, there were a lot of really, really good football players there. Actually, we inherited the #1 defense in the country when we got there. His offensive prowess has been consistent throughout, all the way back to his offensive coordinator days. He's going to challenge you offensively. He's going to have answers.
Frank, is there anything that concerns you about Mullen's offense against this Memphis defense from what you've seen in training camp?
Well, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how they handle the run game, right? Jet Thomas over there at UNLV. I mean, he's no slouch, right? Memphis is expected to have a really good defensive line. So I'm excited to see how that power struggle, who kind of wins that battle. Because that's one thing that you got to keep your eyes on is Jet Thomas, and to see how they're able to kind of contain him a little bit.
All right, Frank, we appreciate you taking the time to give us all of this insight. I know we had to get out here, and you got things you got to do besides just talk to us all day long. But, man, I'm excited to watch Memphis football.
Yeah, it's our first real data point.
Yeah, I'm excited to go ahead and just, stop writing about previews and actually get this thing going.
You can always catch Frank's work on the Daily Memphis. Him and John Varley's really doing the thing for us here on the 24th floor. Frank, it's great to have you back, my guy.
I appreciate y'all.
All right, Frank, see you later. All right, a lot of good insight when it comes to Memphis football, but again, more questions than answers at this point. We won't have answers till after game day.
I wish that I could have got them to green light me going to Vegas, but I watch it from my couch at home.
All right, you'll be all right. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we got a little more for you.
Ending the show the only way we know how. The best thing we saw all week, and trust me, we've got some good ones. It's the best thing I saw next on the 24th floor.
All right, it is time for my best thing that I saw, and I'm standing 10 toes on this one. I appreciate this. The SEC taking a stand, Richard, saying no pro athletes coming back to play in the SEC. 16-0 was the vote. Of course, kind of a little bit of a peer pressure vote there at that point. But all the leadership in the SEC agreed that once you meet certain criteria, you're no longer eligible to come back and play in the SEC. Big Ten had already done some of this, but the SEC saying basically if you've been on a professional roster, a finalized roster, if you were declared for a draft but didn't pull out from the draft fast enough, and there was one more criteria, If you've been in like the G League or something like that.
Yeah, because they did it for NFL, NBA, and MLB. And WNBA.
In WNBA, they did not touch baseball. But basically 3 levels of criteria that basically said, hey, if you've done any of those things, you can no longer come back and play in the SEC.
This all became a thing after Daquan Wright, which we saw in our video, former Ole Miss tight end, who I got a touchdown of covering him, freaking got cut by the Browns and goes to LSU with Kiffin.
Well, he was waiting to get cleared on waivers and then going to go to LSU.
He was going to follow Kiffin. Wasn't he one of the main guys talking about Kiffin leaving? So and Xavier Harris, they're hypocrites.
The problem is going to be that every coach will tell you this. If they don't do it, somebody else is going to. And that's what Lane Kiffin was saying. Hey, somebody's going to recruit these guys. We might as well be the guys to do it.
LSU is doing it across the board. They did it in basketball with R.J. Louise.
Yeah, and so
who signed with the Celtics.
The reality is, I guess there was a meeting prior to the board meeting, and the LSU president basically said, hey, they're going to continue to pursue these athletes. But then when the board meeting came, they voted. They voted 60. Yeah, they didn't want to be the one. But so I think there needs to be some solidarity. There was some conversation about penalties and fines, which don't really do a whole lot. But there's got to be some repercussions because it's getting out of hand.
It's starting to be a court battle that's just too much court talking. College football,
look,
just college sports. Period.
It should just be cut dry.
Always getting involved.
If you declare for the league in any league and you don't withdraw your name by a certain time, you're not eligible anymore. That's it.
Get ready to learn the UFL, buddy.
Yeah.
Let's go into my best thing. It's a friend of the program, Jalen Wells, dropping 56, Ruben, in Vancouver in the Pro-Am. I think that was a record for that Vancouver Pro-Am. I think it was called the BDS Pro-Am. And look at Jalen Wells just getting buckets, making it look easy.
Have you ever been to a Pro-Am?
No, unfortunately not.
I have. When I was in Indianapolis, basketball's a thing there. There were several Pro-Ams, and so I was able to watch several. Those are interesting.
Yeah.
A Pro-Am is interesting because there's always 1 or 2 Jalen Wells type dudes, and then there's a bunch of guys wanting to make a name for themselves.
Yeah.
Who are who were this close. They were great in college, but didn't quite make it to the pros. And so a Pro-Am is no joke.
They always show you its levels to this. Remember when Peyton Pritchard scored like 90 points in the Pro-Am?
Yeah, so I think people sometimes think that a Pro-Am is like an all-star game where everybody's just kind of dorking around, and it's not like that. Like, they're going at it.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when LeBron was in the Pro-Am for the Drew League, and that was big-time stuff. So shout out Jalen Wells. And, of course, we had so much fun playing horse with him. I was nervous. My dad kept making fun of me when I showed him the video. I was like, when I start making my shots, they didn't want to play no more.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, that's you know what I'm saying? I had to get right when I got back home. I went and hooped back at home with my homies. I was like, yeah, man, I had to get right because everybody was clowning me or how I was, bricking. But anytime, that was a fun episode, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I think we're having a little bit of a memory issue here on how.
You know what I'm saying? The brights was too light for me on that episode of the 24th Floor, but not on this episode of the 24th Floor. Shout out to everyone who made today's show possible. We're talking about Andrew Pollard, Connor Alakaya for their work behind the scenes, getting this show together. Ruben, you got a big shout out for something?
Yeah, Fairley head coach Frederick Copeland being here, Daily Mippian, our guy John Varlas, and Frank Bonner joining us as well.
Have a great day, everyone. We will see you on the other side.
This is what it's supposed to look like.
You know what I'm saying? The lights was too bright for me. There was.